emerging field, emerging area. He is taking care and giving consultancy, and he has also delivered various lectures and seminars at various branches of ICI and studied on the various topics, relevant topics such as he is an insolvency professional. हम काफी काम हम साथ में करते हैं. So and he is because completed liability partnerships and audit agency. And he has also given topics such as from company law, insolvency member of WRC of ISO. The key area of his practice is company or very emerging field consultancy. And he has relevant topics such as कहूंगा कि विकास जी के साथ तो हम काफी समय से जुड़े हुए हैं, इन इवन मोर देन 10 इयर्स. तो ही इज वेरी, जैसे कि मीर सर हम जब साथ में बैठते हैं तब लगता ही नहीं है कि आरसीएम सर के साथ बैठे हैं. इज वेरी गुड फ्रेंड. विद दिस वर्ड आई वेलकम योर सर, विकास सर.
थैंक यू प्रदीप भाई.
सर वेलकम. यस सर, आप स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं विकास जी.
Vikas sir, would request you to take charge of the session, sir. Please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Veer bhai. Yeah, it's a great pleasure, I would say, on this Republic Day of India, of our country, to be having a deliberation on the topic like that of code of ethics with our members, and that too in the Surat branch. And Mihir bhai very rightly said that you feel like I am from Surat only. The reason being, I started my career from Surat only. When I became CA in 2003, for 2.5 years initially, I practiced in Surat only. And thereafter, my destiny took me to Ahmedabad. Otherwise, I started from Surat. So, friends, it's always great to be with the members and to talk on subject like that of code of ethics and engagement standards. Especially the time is changing. I would say the time is very much tough for all of us as a professional. And two things which are very much important, I would say, one is code of ethics and other is engagement standards. The number of cases with respect to disciplinary are mounting, are increasing. And the only thing that can help us or can save us, if the code of ethics and the engagement standards, these are followed in letter and spirits. And that is the reason that institute has said and made it compulsory that at least 6 CPRs on these, at least 2 programs on this code of ethics and engagement standards should be attended by every member. Okay. And that is the reason today we are deliberating at this fag end of January, I would say, on this topic. Earlier, this year, I would say the members were so busy with the various deadlines, and still they are busy, because every now and then there is one deadline or another. And we chartered accountants, we always do say कि we are flooded with work. We are काम આટલું બધું છે કે પૂરું જ નથી થતું. But the irony is, even after having such huge amount of work with us, when it comes to fee, when it comes to earning, when it comes to income, it is other way around. There's a lot of work, but no money. So in Gujarati, there's a well-known saying that Anani pedas nahi ane ghadini navras nahi. The situation is that kind of thing that is happening. But we need to check, we need to introspect. Why is it so happening? When we are having a lot of work, even the law of economics, demand and supply, that also says when there is a lot of demand, or then the prices must go up. Okay. So if there is such a demand, such a lot of work, then why we are not able to raise the fee? What I've seen in the last, if I say of the last 10 years, in most of the cases, either the fee remains the same, whatever fee that we were charging 10 years back, we are still charging the same fee, or that might have even gone down in some of the cases, because the client would come and say कि दूसरा सीए तो इतने में ही कर रहा है आप, so ultimately we fall prey to that, we feel that pinch or pressure, and we reduces the fee. Whereas the cost of operating the offices, the inflations, our own needs, everything has gone up. And to match that gap, we are doing more and more and more work. Ultimately, that is at the cost of the family, at the cost of health, and at the cost of so many other things. As if we have forgotten to live our own lives. But we are simply a machine doing work. That's it. So a serious introspection needs to be done whether we want to live a good life, what the objective of ours is. The objective is whether to live a good, great, healthy life or just to work, work, and work. So I always uh, used to talk for 2 3 minutes on this particular issue because I believe that if we chartered accountants can really think on this and we can start learning uh, to how to charge the appropriate fee, then that would be a great help to all of us and the code of ethics will automatically become stronger. These days many a time the code of ethics is being compromised because the fee that is being charged is such less amount, and in code of ethics invariably it has been used or has been mentioned that we should ensure that whatever fee that is being charged is appropriate fee. There should not be too less or there should not be too high. Okay, in both the situation there is a chance, in both the situation there would be a chance that the fee is getting that the work is getting compromised or the independence would be hampered. So that is very very much important for all of us. So please ensure that whatever fee that we are charging, whether we are able to justify, we need to find out the cost for ourselves, the various costs and all these things, and accordingly the fee should be worked out, and then a reasonable markup should be also be added. So friends, with these now let us come to the subject proper of code of ethics. Just a second, I'll just share this screen share I'll do. I hope the screen is visible. Pradeep
Yes,
ji?
sir.
Yes,
It
sir.
is visible.
Yeah, great.
Yes, sir.
So before I start with the presentation, I also would like to thank Balkishan bhai who was so active in this to get this seminar arranged. He was after me कि विकास भाई ये सेमिनार तो अपने को करना ही है, चाहे whatever it is, code of ethics तो एक बार करना है. And today I think he is busy with the this present this what to say blood donation drive in Surat and all this. So he is not available. He told me. So in his absence, I would like to thank him. Uh, so friends, first
आपकी आपका मैसेज हम पहुंचा देंगे सर उनके पास.
thank you sir, thank you very much. Well,
Yes.
so the code of ethics, this is divided. The earlier code of ethics, if we talk about, that was code of ethics 2009. That was effective till 30th of June 2020, and that was divided into two parts: code of ethics part A and part B. Whereas the new code of ethics, which is applicable from 1st of July 2020, this is divided into three parts. First one is volume 1, another one is volume 2, and the next one, that is the last one, which is a new addition to this, is code of ethics volume 3, and that includes the updated relevant disciplinary case laws. So earlier the relevant disciplinary case laws was not there. So now this is a new addition to this, and we'll discuss all these things in the detail in the slides to come. If we talk about code of ethics, see friends, this code of ethics will at times will make us bore or maybe sometimes like very much theoretical, but we need to understand this in letter and spirit so that we can apply the same also. Code of Ethics 2009, if we talk about the part A was based on the IFAC and ISBAR, that is International Ethical Standard Board of Accountants, and the Code of Ethics 2005 edition. So that was divided into three parts: general application of the code, then the chapter 2, that was professional accountant in public practice. So professional accountant, let us understand, professional accountant means chartered accountants, and in public practice means CAs in practice. So we all are CAs in practice. So that was applicable to CA in practice. Third one is professional accountant in service, and that was members in industry, we generally called as. Then it was the part B was there. Part B was on the technical side, that included accounting and auditing standards, CA Act 1949, various council guidelines, self-regulatory measures recommended by the council, and appendices A to F. Now, if we talk about the Code of Ethics 2019, so it is divided into volume 1, 2, and 3. Volume 1. This is part one is applicable to all the professional accountants. May he be in service, may he be in industry or otherwise. So complying with the code, fundamental principles, and the
Happy Republic Day. Happy Republic Day.
conceptual framework. Then part two, this applies only to the members in industry. In the code, it is mentioned as professional accountants in service. Part three, it is professional accountant in public practice. That is the CAs in practice. And this is new one, part 4A and 4B. This deals with the international independence standards. And again, this has been divided into two more parts, 4A and 4B. So 4A deals with the independence for the audits and the reviews, and 4B, this deals with the other assurance engagements, means assurance engagements other than audit and reviews. Then volume 2, this again on the technical side, just like that part B of the Code of Ethics 2009, this includes accounting and auditing standards, CA Act 1949, few sections, council guidelines for advertisement, and then council guidelines 2020, also the self-regulatory measures recommended by the council. And the volume 3, which includes the case laws which are appearing hitherto under commentary under the Code of Ethics 2009, now are accepted as case law referencers. So this includes the CA Act section 22, 24 and 27. First schedule again is divided into four parts, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So professional misconduct in relation to the CAs in practice, in relation to members of institute in service. Third one is in relation to members of the institute generally. So generally means may he be in service, may he be in practice, or may he be into business. Then part 4, misconducts, other misconducts. First 3 deals with the professional misconduct, part 4 deals with the other misconduct of the members in general. And second schedule, a question will come why it is again first schedule, second schedule. So that also I'll deal in the next slides. Second schedule, part 1, professional misconduct in relation to the CA in practice. Second one is in relation to the members of the institute generally. And the third one is other misconduct in relation to the members of the institute in general. So first two part of the second schedule deals with the professional misconduct, and part 3 deals with the other misconducts. So friends, when I was discussing why there is first schedule, second schedule, so these have been I would say differentiated based on the gravity of the misconduct. So more the gravity, it will be in the second schedule, and lesser the gravity, it will be lying under the first schedule. So when the gravity is less and it lies under the first schedule, the punishments and would also be on the lower side. But when it comes to the second schedule, the punishments would be on the higher side. So if we talk about the first schedule, which is by the Board of Disciplines, then the maximum that can be done is either they may reprimand, or there may be a suspension up to 3 months, and the maximum fine that they can levy is up to 1 lakh rupees. But when the breach falls under the second schedule, then the disciplinary committee will take care of the case and may have the following actions. First thing is they may reprimand, then suspension for any period. They may suspend the member for any period and even permanently. So see, so the gravity into this, if the gravity is too much, then the membership may be suspended, or the member may be suspended permanently as well. And they may also levy a fine up to 5 lakh rupees. So friends, now let us discuss the things in more detail. First schedule, part 1, if we talk about professional conduct in relation to CA in practice. So majority of us, those who are attending today's program, I guess they are from the practicing side only. Okay, so this, when any CA, there is a member in practice, CA in practice, he allows any person to practice his name as a CA unless such person is also a CA in practice and is in partnership with or employed by him. So when it says such person is also a CA in practice and is in partnership, so either he may allow his own partner, that is fine, or if some CA who is employed with him and they represent their firm, then it is fine. But if somebody who is outsider, who is not his partner, or who is not a chartered accountant, and again any other person who is also not employed by him, still if they allow "Ya tumharo partner che." So if such kind of things, then it would tantamount to misconduct. Another one is pays or allows or agrees to pay or allow. So the second one would deals with paying, third one would be dealing with accepting. Rest of the things are almost same. So pays or allows or agrees to pay or allow directly or indirectly. It may be direct, it may be indirect. Any share. So mark the words well. Any share, commission, or brokerage in the fee or profits of his professional business to any person other than a member of the institute. So the person who is not a member of the institute, or a partner, or a retired partner, or the legal representative of a deceased partner, okay, or a member of any other professional body. So if he's sharing any such kind of thing, then he will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. So here a case was there, and we have seen in many of the cases, which practically we all know that when some accountant comes with some work and he would be asking that 10,000 is the audit fee or 20,000 is the audit fee, and 25% he would be asking as a kickback to get that audit referred to us. So if any such kind of arrangement or such kind of things are there, and by whatever name the amount is directly or indirectly paid to that accountant, then it clearly comes under professional misconduct. Here is a case law, DS Sadri versus BM Pithawala. A CA gave 50% of the audit fee received by him to the complainant, who was not a chartered accountant, under the nomenclature of office allowance. And such an arrangement continued for a number of years. And when ultimately, when the matter came up in the disciplinary and the hearing was concluded, he was held guilty of professional misconduct because he cannot share his fee with the accountant. Then accepts or agrees. The second one which we went through, that was payment, and here it is receiving. So accepts or agrees to accept any part of the profit of the professional work of a person who is not a member of the institute. So there are some cases where somebody becomes members with somebody becomes partners with another person and eventually shares the profit. That is again also not allowed.
Sir, ये धर्मेश बर्फी वाला has raised his hand. So I request members, if they have any query or question, so they can type in the chat box so that Vikas sir will try to address during the session. If any member have any type of query or anything they want to ask, discuss, then please type in the chat box. Thank you.
Or
Sir, you may continue.
Or alternately, it can also be done कि they may unmute themselves and can ask the questions. I'll be happy to answer. No worries.
सर अनम्यूट में फिर डिस्टरबेंस हो जाता है नॉर्मली, बट ठीक है, अगर कोई रेज हैंड करता है तो अनम्यूट किया जा सकता है वो.
ठीक है सर.
ओके सर.
Okay, done. Whatever is convenient. Yes. Well, so allows any person to practice. This we have discussed in the next slide. Yes. So enters into partnership in or outside India with any person other than a CA in practice. So a CA in practice can enter into partnership only and only with a CA in practice. So a CA who is in practice, forget about others, he cannot even enter into a partnership with a member who is not into practice. So in order to be partner, both the members must be a practicing chartered accountant, may it be in India or may it be outside India. Even the concept of multidisciplinary partnership, we call it, MDP, sorry, that is also coming in. The draft guidelines have already been issued and our institute has cleared everything. And I think by next month, this will start operating effectively. So we will be allowed to enter into partnerships, and simultaneously the things are also going on in other these professional bodies like that of CS and ICWA. So all three are working on this simultaneously, and maybe by this March, we people will be able to enter into partnership with company secretaries, with cost accountants, with lawyers, and all these things, subject to the reciprocal arrangement from their institute as well. So far as to my knowledge, the lawyers, that has not yet been allowed, or the bar council has not made the necessary amendments. So that needs to be seen. But otherwise, from our side, there won't be any problem if we want to enter into partnership. So we can have all the services under one roof. We can enter into partnership with company secretaries, with cost accountants and all. And in order to be called as a chartered accountancy firm, the majority of the partners of that firm must be chartered accountants. So once that is cleared and that becomes effective, then it will not be treated as any kind of misconduct, even if we enter into partnership with such people. Then case law is Harish Kumar, where a CA had engaged himself as a partner in 2 business firms and MD in 2 companies. And he was also holding certificate of practice without obtaining permission of the institute. So he was held guilty. And we all are aware of this particular thing, that yes, if a CA he is into practice, he cannot become a partner with others. Then if he secures work either through the services of a person who is not an employee of such CA, or who is not his partner, or by means which are not open to a CA. So here we are dealing with 3 different situations. If he is securing work either through the services of a person, he might have retained some person who is not an employee of such CA, or maybe he is not his partner, or by other means also which are not open to CA. For example, CA cannot go outside and solicit the work at large to the public. So that is not allowed. So in this case, Jekhanand Sharda versus Deepak Mehta, a CA wrote various letters to the officers of different army canteens, giving detailed this information, detailed about his experience, himself, and all these things, his partners, his offices, and the norms for charging audit fee. So here he was soliciting the work to the public at large. Okay, so he was held guilty. So this was the third leg of the point number 5, that by means which are not open to a CA. Then he solicits clients or professional work either directly or indirectly by circular, advertisement. This is a kind of mass appeals, I would say, personal communications even, or by interview, or by any other means. So in the instant case where DC Pal, a CA, wrote several letters to the Assistant Registrar of Cooperative Societies, Government of West Bengal, stating that though his firm was on the panel of auditors, no audit work was allotted to the firm, and requested them to look into the matter. He was held guilty. So this seems strange, but the thing is, it is treated as if he is creating some sort of pressure on the government authority. He was creating some sort of pressure on that authority, and resultantly he was held guilty. You cannot ask, you cannot wrote several letters asking about why the work is not being allotted. Yes. Advertises his professional attainments or services, or use any designation or expressions other than CA on professional documents, visiting cards, letterheads, or signboards. So this is again not allowed. So he cannot, one cannot advertise his professional attainments or the services, like in I am expert in income tax, expert in GST, all such kind of things cannot be used. Or he also cannot use any designations or expressions other than CA on professional document. So those things which are allowed, like you can mention CS, you can mention ICWA, that is fine, that is allowed. But those things which are not allowed, like if one is a CPA from US, then he cannot write CPA US. The reason is what is permitted under the guidelines. CPA can on the degrees of only those institutes of the foreign overseas can be mentioned, with which we are having any MOU or some reciprocal arrangement. So if it is Australian CPA, then it is fine. But if it comes to US CPA, then we cannot. Okay. And this applies to visiting cards, letterheads, or even the signboards. In this given case of Sardar P.S. Sodhvans, a CA wrote several letters to the government department pointing out the seniority of his firm. So that was the attainment that was he was trying to advertise, that his firm is very, very senior, sending his life sketch and stating that he had a good, glorious record of service to the country as well as to the organization of accountancy profession. And that was all with the view or with the objective to get some audit work. These letters were clearly held in the nature of advertising his professional attainments, and he was also held guilty. Then he accepts a position as auditor previously held by another.
Sir, one question from member.
हाँ
एक क्वेश्चन है सर यहाँ पे.
हाँ जी.
Member is asking that non-executive director था.
बोलिए बोलिए सर.
Non.
हेलो.
Non-executive director कहने chartered accountant practice. Non-executive director.
बंद हो गई ना क्या बंद?
हेलो हेलो
सर
हाँ सर,
A chartered accountant in practice can become a non-executive
यस,
director,
हाँ, ही
or it
कैन
also require
बिकम।
permission, prior permission.
नहीं, नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर बनना हो तो उसके लिए परमिशन नहीं चाहिए। हेलो,
Okay.
हाँ, अगर किसी को नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव
Yes, sir.
डायरेक्टर, वो शेयर होल्डर भी नहीं है उस कंपनी के अंदर और सिर्फ नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर बनना है उनको, ठीक है। कहने का मतलब इतना ही है कि उनको फुल टाइम एंगेजमेंट नहीं होना चाहिए। सिंपली अगर वो उनको बोर्ड मीटिंग्स में जाना है और उनको सिटिंग फी मिल रही है, देन इट इज फाइन, दैट कैन बी डन। होप आई एम क्लियर। हेलो, yeah. So on this question of non-executive director, yes, one person, any chartered accountant in practice can become a non-executive director in a company. He should not draw any kind of remuneration from that company, and he should only be getting the sitting fee. So he cannot be a whole-time director, he cannot be a managing director with that company. So the 8th point, accepts a position as auditor previously held by another CA or a certified auditor who has been issued certificate so and so without first communicating with him in writing. This is a very, very important issue, I would say. And most of the cases in DC are by one CA to another are because of this reason, NOC that we generally call it as. But if we go by the code of ethics, nowhere the word NOC that has been used, what has been mentioned is if he accepts a position as auditor previously held by another CA or a certified auditor who has been issued certificate of practice so and so without first communicating with him in writing. So what the word that is most important is without first communicating with him in writing. So if somebody wants to be appointed as the auditor in place of another auditor, then he has to, simply the requirement is he has to first communicate with them in writing. With the previous auditor, he has to do the communication. Nowhere he needs to ask for a permission. The only thing that we need to ensure is there should not be any undisputed fee that must be outstanding. And if it is fine, so the letter which we normally write for NOC, that should not be letter asking NOC, rather that should be like, we have been approached by so and so, the name of the client, we have been approached by Mr. so and so or so and so firm for being appointed as the
Okay,
auditor
sure.
of the company. Hello,
Yes, sir.
yes sir, please. Is there anything or shall I continue? हेलो, आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
Your voice is audible.
Pardon, my voice is audible? Hello,
Yes,
is
sir.
it? Hello,
Yes, sir, audible.
Yes, sir.
audible? Shall I continue?
Audible. Yes, sir, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So, hello. Yeah. So the requirement
Yes,
is,
sir. Please continue.
okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the requirement is that while accepting the new audit assignment, he should simply communicate with the previous auditor in writing. That is the requirement. Nowhere it is mentioned that you need to obtain an NOC कि आपको पूछना पड़ेगा कि मैं ये ऑडिट लूं या नहीं लूं, ऐसा कहीं रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है. The requirement is we have to communicate with the previous auditor in writing कि we have been approached by so and so client or so and so party for being appointed as the auditor of the company, and this is your for your information and intimation. And in case if any fee is outstanding, please do let us know. In case any undisputed audit fee is outstanding, please do let us know. So the requirement is, first thing is we should communicate in writing with the previous auditor. We should inform him. It is about communicating. It is not about asking any NOC. So, but in the normal parlance, we always call it as an NOC. But once we write a letter asking NOC that if you please let us know if you have do not have any other object or any objection, so that becomes difficult. It is better the way we write the letter, that should be clearly taken care of. It should always be mentioned, as I said, that Mr. So and so has approached us for being appointed as the auditor of the company, This is for your information and intimation. Please do let us know if any undisputed audit fee is pending. That's it, nothing else. Okay. And you can mention the timeline within which it has to be mentioned, 5 days or 7 days or 10 days or whatever reasonable timeline that you think fit. So in the Glune case of S.N. Johari versus N.K. Jain, a CA commenced the work of audit on the very day he sent the letter to the previous auditor. So friends, he sent the letter today, for example, say 26th of January, and on 26th of January itself he commenced the work. So it means that he has not waited for the appropriate time of 7 days or 10 days if any outstanding fee is there or something is there for which he should come out to you. So he was held guilty for this particular reason, but not because of the NOC or something like. And he was held guilty with a reference that the appointment could be accepted only when the outgoing auditor does not respond within a reasonable time. Either you get a response from him that yes, I do not have any objection, that is fine, or or if you do not write anything within, say for example, 7 days or whatever time that you have mentioned in that, then you can commence the work. And this is only and only with the thing that in mind is there should not be any undisputed audit fee which is pending. Otherwise, so absolutely there is no problem. And most of the cases in DC, they come out of this only because of this particular clause, because there is no requirement of NOC. The only thing is if the undisputed audit fee has already been paid, that has been settled, and he is informed, and he has started the work after 5 to 7 days or 10 days, whatever reasonable time that they believe, then there is absolutely no problem with that. Next point is accepts an appointment as auditor of a company without first ascertaining from it whether the provisions of Companies Act has been complied with or not. So friends, this is again very important. Whenever we are being appointed as the auditor of any company, it is our duty to ensure that the various provisions of the Companies Act for appointment as an auditor are also complied with. So it should not be like कि कोई भी काम आया और फटाक से acceptance दे दिया. No, we must first ensure that whether the act has been complied with or not, because if we talk about the Companies Act, the auditor's appointment is now for a period of 5 years. So if a period is for 5 years, and after the end of the say for the end, after the end of the third year, if some company approaches you and wants to appoint you replacing the another one, then whether the due provision has been followed, due procedure has been followed or not, that needs to be taken care of. Because under what circumstances or situations we can be appointed as the auditor in that case? Either that particular person has resigned because of some reason or other, and there is a casual vacancy is there, and then the company wants to appoint, fine. Or there is some other reason, there is a death of that auditor or some other problems because of which the auditor is not able to. But else, if the auditor is also willing to continue and we are being replaced or we are being appointed in his place, then that cannot be the case, because first they'll have to follow the procedure for removal of that auditor. We'll have to do the various formalities that are required to be done, like filing the application with the regional directorate and all these, and removal hearing will also take place, whatever the board meeting approvals that are required, all these things will have to be done. So if those procedures are not done and then you are being simply appointed, this is not done. So we further this indebtedness or all these things, loans and all, whatever it is there, or investment. So whatever the requirement of these conditions in that is mentioned, that also needs to be taken care of. So whenever we are being approached by any company for being appointed as the auditor of that company, we must first ensure that all the sections, provisions, rules, whatever it is there with respect to appointment of auditor are complied with. So here in the instant case, M.K. Biswas, he was a CA who accepted the appointment as a statutory auditor of the company on the basis of the resolution of the board of directors. And as per the earlier Companies Act 1956, section 224, what was required, that was a government company, so it was required that the appointment should be done by the central government, and as the company did not make the appointment in the general meeting, he was held guilty. So the requirement was that the appointment has to be done by the central government, in that too in the general meeting, but that provision was not followed, and hence he was held guilty of professional misconduct. The next one is charges or offers to charge, accepts or offers to accept in respect of any professional employment fee which are based on percentage of profits which are contingent upon the findings. First thing is which are based on the percentage of profits, or Another thing is which are contingent upon the findings or result of such employment except as permitted under any regulation made under this act. So friends, percentage based fee cannot be charged by the chartered accountants except as permitted under the code. So like recently, this under IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, if somebody is appointed as a liquidator of that company and he is charging fee based on the percentage, then that has been permitted under the code and that is allowed. Okay. And there are few other things which have been permitted, but otherwise generally we cannot have percentage based fee. That is not possible. And the other thing that they allowed is uh, percentage based fee can be charged to non-audit client for the non-assurance services. Okay. First thing is that client must be non-auditing client, the client for whom you are not doing the audit and you are giving the services which are also not under the nature of assurance services. So if somebody is a client for whom you are only doing project finance and then you charge some percentage based fee, that is fine, but not otherwise. And the thing is, apart from this, what we need to ensure or we need to check is uh, we need to be very clear that to non-audit services and non-audit clients also only this kind of fee that we can charge and not otherwise. So here in this case, where a CA had charged fee at certain percentage of the expected relief. So what it was like in the given case, what has happened? This is the addition that has been made by income tax authorities. If I am able to bring down this or whatever the advantage or the gain that can I make to you, based on that percentage or based on that relief, I'll charge certain fee, for example 20% of that relief. So that is yes. Yeah. Then the next one is professional misconduct in relation to CAs in practice we are discussing. Next one is engages in any business or occupation other than the profession of CA unless permitted by the council. So if any practicing CA, he wants to engage himself in any business or occupation other than that of the practicing CA, then first permission of the council needs to be obtained. Otherwise, he cannot do. In this case, a CA engaged himself in carrying on a business known as Shivaji Engineering Work and he was held guilty. And same is the case even with the HUF also. So if one CA is the Karta of that particular HUF, okay, and he has to, he even cannot carry on the business in the name of his HUF as well. Because being the Karta of that HUF, he has to devote substantial time in that business. So it is not permitted, it is not allowed. Then if a practicing CA allows a person not being a member of the institute in practice or a member not being his partner to sign on his behalf or on behalf of his firm any balance sheet, profit and loss account or report or some financial statement, then a CA who is into practice, he knows that the other person is not his partner and still he allow him to sign on his behalf, then that person would be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. Then pays or allows or agrees to pay. So this is till now what we have discussed is members in practice. Now this is members in service. So pays or allows or agrees to pay directly or indirectly to any
सर एक
person.
क्वेश्चन था मेंबर का, HUF वाला थोड़ा वापस से इलोबरेट करेंगे सर. HUF
यस ऐसा है कि अगर कोई मेंबर इन प्रैक्टिस है और उनकी कोई HUF है जिसमें वो करता है, तो वो HUF बिजनेस नहीं कर सकता, क्योंकि वो जो करता है उनको सब्सटेंशियल टाइम बिजनेस के लिए आपको टाइम डिवोट करना होता है. तो कोई भी अगर करता खुद वो करता है उस HUF के, तो वो HUF भी एक्टिवली बिजनेस के अंदर एंगेज नहीं हो सकता है. उनको परमिशन मांगनी पड़ती है और परमिशन मिलती नहीं है.
ओके, HUF कैन टेक गिफ्ट्स एंड ऑल, बट वो बिजनेस नहीं कर सकता है.
बिजनेस नहीं कर सकता है.
अदर इनकम सोर्स इनकम हो सकती है उसकी,
आपका HUF हो सकता है लेकिन HUF बिजनेस नहीं कर सकता है.
ओके, HUF बनाने के लिए परमिशन इट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड.
उसकी कोई जरूरत नहीं है.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah. Pays or allows or agrees to pay directly or indirectly to any person any share in the emoluments of the employment undertaken by him. तो देखिए यहाँ क्या है, in the given instant case, a member who is into industry just to seek an employment, if he's giving some commission, brokerage, or some directly or indirectly, whatever, if he says, for example, I'll receive a salary of 50,000 per month, so a total annual salary is 6 lakhs. Out of 6 lakhs, I'll give you 20%, 1,20,000. So such kind of practices cannot be undertaken by any employee or to take the employment. It is not possible. So it's a kind of cut, kickback, or whatever that is not allowed. Then accepts or agrees to accept any part of fee, profit, or gain from a lawyer, a CA, or broker engaged by such company. So idea is like, if a person, for example, he is into industry and he is at some prominent position in that industry, in that company, and he has got the rights of appointing various agencies like that of a statutory auditor, like that some lawyer for the litigation work of that company, or some other people he would be appointing. So that person cannot get any kind of cut, kickback, or whatever. So normally what happens, otherwise what will happen, that if a CA, for example, there is a CFO in the company, and he would be doing like, if somebody is to be appointed as the इंटरनल ऑडिटर ऑफ द कंपनी, एंड ही सेज कि भाई मैं तुम्हारी फीस 40,000 की जगह 50,000 कर देता हूँ और 10,000 जो है ऊपर के आप मुझे दे देना. ओके, so no, this kind of practices are also under professional misconduct in relation to the members who are into industry even. Well, then professional misconduct in relation to the members of the institute generally. So that they may be in practice, they may be in industry, they may be in business or anything. So first misconduct is not being a fellow of the institute, act as a fellow of the institute. So in the given case, what has happened? For example, the fellowship is acquired, or FCA status that has to be applied for with the institute, and then institute grants the status of FCA. It is not merely that one has completed 5 years in practice or into employment, 5 years of continuous employment, and he becomes FCA automatically. No, he has to apply with the institute in the given forms, then institute grants him that FCA fellowship, and then only he can use the word FCA. So if a person who is not an FCA, who has not been granted the status of FCA from the institute, and still represent himself or hold out himself as an FCA, so that is not allowed, and that is a called as professional misconduct. The next comes, does not supply the information called for, or does not comply with the requirement asked for by the ICI or quality review board, that is QRB we call, or some appellate authority. In such cases also, you are duty bound that if some such authorities ask for some information, that has to be shared. So this is applicable to both the members in practice as well as members in industry. So if somebody is there in the company and he has to supply such kind of information, he is duty bound to supply such kind of information. Otherwise, it will be treated as professional misconduct. So in the given case of SM Bohra, where a CA had continued to train an article, even though his name was removed from the membership of the institute, and he had failed to, then some institute asked for some clarification from him, but he still failed to send any reply to the institute asking him to send the explanation that how or why he was training any article clerk when he himself was not the member of the institute. And then he was held guilty of professional misconduct, because if you are not eligible to train any article clerk, you are not a member of the institute, then still if you are training, so that was the problem. Then while inviting professional work from another CA, or while responding to tenders or inquiries, or while advertising through a write-up or anything as provided for in item 6 and 7, part of this gives information knowing it to be false. So here in the given case, if some authority, say for example government authority is coming out with some tender, and they have asked for the various informations about the firms in the tender, we have to, while submitting the bid, while submitting the filing the tender, we have to give certain informations, like they may need to know, or they may ask for our turnover, they may ask for number of employees, they may हेलो हेलो.
Yes, sir.
या बीच में शायद मुझे म्यूट कर दिया था किसी ने.
Acha. So now voice is audible, sir.
Yeah, fine, great. So whenever some tenders, some informations are being called for, we have to provide those informations, and we have to ensure that whatever information that has been called for is being submitted in a proper way, and that information should be true and correct. So for example, there's a requirement in the tender that the firm should have a minimum turnover of 10 lakh rupees, and actually the firm was not having the turnover 10 lakh rupees, but just in order to get that work, the firm mentions that their turnover is 10 lakh rupees, and whatever the supporting documents that they give, those documents were also manipulated, because since that firm was not under audit, 10 lakh rupees in any ways the case, the turnover was 8 lakh only, so that was not under audit or anything, only the self attested documents were required to be given. And if such kind of information, there is some false information is given, and knowing it to be false, this is an example which I have shared with you. There may be n number of other things. They may ask for that number of employees. Actually, you are having 10 employees, but you mentioned that I am having 20 employees. So such kind of cases would fall under this category. Yes. Then part 4, other misconduct in relation to the members of the institute. It is held by any civil or criminal court. So this is now is held by any civil or criminal court for an offense which is punishable with imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months. So this is other misconduct. This is nothing to do with the profession. There is nothing wrong in the profession. He has not done anything which is wrong as per the profession. But outside the profession also, he has done something which may bring disrepute to the profession. Because if something goes wrong, if some people fights with somebody, he kicks him off, or any some cheating is done, or something he is duped of, and in such cases, if he is found guilty by any civil or criminal court for an offense, and which is punishable for an imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, if had it been more than 6 months, so it would come under the second schedule. But since this is less than 6 months, this would come under the first schedule. And here also he is deemed to be guilty of other misconduct, though it is not a professional misconduct, but it is other misconduct. In one of the cases, some in UK, one of the person, he was boarding a train without a ticket, maybe because of some mistake or in some hurry or whatever it was. He boarded a train without a ticket, and eventually TT caught him. And once the TT caught him, and it came to the light that he was a chartered accountant, then complaint was made to his institute as well in UK, and ultimately in the newspapers and everywhere, as we all know, that it is mentioned that CA ने ये किया, CA ने वो किया. So that was bringing a disrepute to the profession, and he was held guilty under this other misconducts. So same is the case. Whatever the thing, if that brings some disrepute, so that is covered in the second case, wherein in the opinion of the council brings disrepute to the profession. First one is, point number 1 is where he has been convicted, he has been imprisoned for a period not exceeding 6 months. And in the second case, where the council is of the opinion that it brings disrepute to the profession or the institute as a result of his action, whether or not related to his professional work, still he can be held liable of other misconduct. So in case of Rajiv Sharma, where a CA had not acted merely as an auditor of the company, but it seemed that he was acting in nexus with the chairman of the company. Though he was the auditor of the company, but he was acting in the nexus with the chairman of the company, and thus aiding and abetting in the rigging and creation of artificial market. So he helped in inflating the prices of the shares of that company. So that was also held under this other misconduct. In case of K. Ravichandran, DGM, Indian Bank versus Raj K. Agarwal, where a CA was demanding and taking bribe from the borrower customers of the bank in return of maintaining the standard category of the borrower. He was asking that if you give me some amount, then what I'll do is I'll show your account as standard, else I'll show it as an NPA account or whatever, doubtful accounts. So that was also held guilty under this. So this is very broad one. We need to understand that any act, anything because of which there can be a disrepute to the institute, yes, there may be a problem. Then now comes to the second schedule, professional misconduct in relation to CA in practice. These are, since this is second schedule, these are all very grave in nature and can have serious repercussions. Even if it is under the first schedule, still, if any disciplinary is initiated and we are held guilty, there is a kind of blot on the entire career. So may it be first or second, but not only blot, forget about the blot, the second schedule is even grave and would be having far reaching implications other than that of image as well. So first one is discloses informations acquired in the course of his professional engagement to any person other than his client so engaging him. This is about the breach of confidentiality without the consent of his client or otherwise than as required by the law for the time being in force. So if it is something which is required by the law and if he submits the same or he shared the information or maybe because with the prior this consent of the client if he is sharing something, that is fine, otherwise he cannot. In the given case law of Jamnadas Harakchan versus PC Parekh, disclosure of information where a CA disclosed to the IT officer information acquired in the course of his professional engagement without the consent of his client. So it is not so that some proceedings or something were going on, just at his own he went to the income tax officer and shared some information which could have been dangerous or fatal to that client, and he was held guilty for that. Then certifies or submit. So the confidentiality at any cost needs to be maintained. Certifies or submits in his name or in the name of his firm a report of an examination of financial statement unless the examination of such statements and the related record has been made by him or by a partner or an employee in his firm or by another CA in practice. So, in a nutshell, to say, when these things are not verified and still if somebody is signing, then there may be a trouble. And at the same time, even though if one of our partner or our employee, okay, or some expert CA in practice, he has done these things, but still one who is signing, he is duty bound to verify the things with reasonable this. Reasonably, he has to verify the things. So, in the case of P.N. Vittal Das, Additional Collector of Customs versus P.U. Patil, where a CA issued false certificates to several parties for past exports for some monetary consideration without verifying any supporting records or any documents, then he was held guilty because false certificates were issued without examining the facts whether actually such export has taken place or not. Then permits his name or the name of his firm to be used in connection with an estimate of earning contingent upon future transactions in a manner which may lead to the belief that he vouches for the accuracy of the forecast. So this is when we are doing the cases of project finance and all these things, and the bankers ask for the signing the projected balance sheets and all these things. So we need to be very careful. Whenever we are signing any projected balance sheet, that has to be as per the engagement standards. The engagement standards, we can have a separate session altogether for that, but the engagement standards needs to be taken care of while certifying the or while signing the provisional balance sheets or while signing the forecast, projected forecast. But that's, and again the format is also mentioned in those respective standards. The It is very clear that nowhere those kind of projected balance sheet when signed by the CA must give an impression that we are vouching for the accuracy or we are vouching for the certainty, because nobody can predict, even the businessman himself can predict that whatever he has estimated will be right in the times to come. There is always the difference is bound to be there. So we are only using our professional judgment. We are seeing the arithmetical accuracy or the whatever the mathematical formulas that has been put that are proper. That is the thing that we can do. So in the format, it has been clearly mentioned what has to be given, what has to be mentioned. So these estimates of the earning which are contingent upon future transactions can never be certified. They can be signed, but we cannot vouch for the accuracy of those forecasts. So those standards, engagement standards, that needs to be followed, and that has to be checked. So various SAE, SR, that is SAE, SRE, SRS, these needs to be followed based on the case to case. So maybe SAE 3400 or SRS 4400 Okay, so that needs to be checked and that has to be applied. In the given this case law, Tamil Nadu Mercantile Bank versus RBK symbol, a CA issued 97 projection statements for certain individuals without verifying the basic documents on the basis of which the bank had extended the loan amount as well. After the bank revealed that persons for whom the respondent had issued financial statement did not have any business or source for repayment of loan, he was held guilty. See, ultimately, whenever such kind of things happen, everybody comes to the CA only. Nobody bothers about the bankers. Nobody bankers bother about the other persons who was engaged or involved into this. But the CA is already always under trouble. So we need to be more cautious. Now the time is very tough for all of us, but we need to be doubly sure before issuing any kind of certificate or anything. So engagement standards, that needs to be read very carefully. We all must understand the engagement standards. These are very, very critical and are very, very much of important this for us. Then the next one is expresses his opinion on financial statements of any business or enterprise in which his firm or a partner is firm has a substantial interest, because these kind of certification will create self-interest threats. So whenever self-interest threats that are there, we cannot certify such kind of. So suppose there is one firm in which maybe my partner or my relative, say for example my wife is doing on that business, so I should refrain from doing the audit for that particular business. So express his opinion on financial statement of any business or enterprise in which his firm or his or partner in his firm has a substantial interest, that should be avoided. So in this case, where a CA conducted the audit of account of an evening college in Mangalore, besides he was also the vice principal in that same college. So he was gainfully employed in that college and he was also doing the independent audit. That is not possible at all. And ultimately he was held guilty for that. Then comes fails to disclose a material fact known to him which is not disclosed in financial statement, but disclosure of which is necessary in making such financial statement where he is connected with that financial statement in a professional capacity. So he fails to disclose a material fact known to him, a fact which was known to him and which is not also the fact which is known to him and which is also not disclosed in the financial statement. And the disclosure of the same fact was of very, very much importance that was necessary for making such financial statement. Okay. And in the case of where a CA failed to bring attention to the heavy cash transactions entered into by the SSC in the audit report, in Form 3CD in terms of Section 44AB of the Income Tax Act, he was held guilty. So whatever information which is material and which is known to us, we should bring it to the notice. We should mention it in the audit report. Then he fails to report a material misstatement known to him to appear in a financial statement. He knows that something which is there in the financial statement is materially wrong, which is wrong and which is material item which has impact on the financial statements true and fair view. And still he doesn't comment on that. So in the case of Vandita R. Agarwal, Company Secretary versus Wall Street Finance Limited, Mumbai versus MS Parikh, MSP and Company Chartered Accountants, Mumbai, the respondent had shown an amount of 19,20,000 something as deposit received under the head current liabilities and provisions in the financial statement of Messrs. Patel Holding for the year 8-9 and nil in the year 9-10. So what happened in the instant case? In the year 8-9, he himself is audited the balance sheet and it is shown as 19,20,000 rupees something. And thereafter, even though there were no transaction, nothing was there, still in 9-10 he has showed that to be nil. So that is apparently that is a gross negligence and he was held guilty of that. So opening balances, closing balances, transactions in those accounts needs to be checked invariably. Then does not exercise due diligence or is grossly negligent in the conduct of his professional duties. Ajit Singh Ahuja versus Dinesh Kumar Goyal, where a CA wrongly certified the increase in paid-up share capital of a private company in the balance sheet without proper evidence. So no increase in share capital form was filed with ROC. Thereafter, no amount was received in the bank account. He did not verify the bank statement. Nothing was done. So he did not exercise any kind of due diligence, and he was totally, absolutely negligent in that case. So he was negligent in conducting his professional duty, and he was held guilty for that. So whenever we are doing, we must be any discharging any such our duty, we must ensure that the things must be substantiated. We must exercise ample due diligence. Okay. So whatever we are doing in some of the cases, and you will agree with me, in most of the cases, whenever we are doing the audit of our clients, and if they have taken any loan from the banks, then they need the stock statements to be or the debtor statement, this needs to be certified. The bankers need those, and quarterly and all this. And believe me, we are not doing the quarterly audit and nothing. And uh, if those statements are ultimately signed by us and submitted to the bank, and if that goes into a default, or if anything goes wrong with that client, maybe intentionally, unintentionally, whatsoever it is, if the client becomes defaulter and some actions are initiated, then believe me, the first one would be the chartered accountant to face the music. He'll receive the notices, in some cases from the banks, in some cases even from the CBI and all these things. And these are ample n number of such kind of cases which are going on. So we must be very, very much careful while signing those debtor statements or the stock statements and all these things, because we need to verify. And frankly, this verifications are of paramount importance, and most of the certificates are being issued, I've seen many a times, without just verifying those details. So that needs to be taken care of. So many chartered accountants are in trouble because of this. Then fails to obtain sufficient information which is necessary for expression of an opinion, or its exceptions are sufficiently material to negate the expression of an opinion. So what does it mean? He fails to obtain sufficient information. Whatever information that is required for expressing our opinion, those information itself are not sufficient. There is a short, whatever information that we need, these are not available. For example, there are some FDs, fixed deposits, that are lying in the bank, and we want to verify those from the FD certificates and all these, or from the bankers we want to verify. But if we are not getting any information apart from merely an entry in the books of accounts, then how to substantiate those things? So, in such cases, that person would be held guilty of professional misconduct. So, in this case, Chiranjeev Lal Khanna, where the respondent had audited the financial statements of the company for financial year 7-8, however, the respondent had given unqualified opinion in his audit report, despite the fact that there was a non-compliance with respect to various accounting standards like that of 1, 2, 5, 9, and so on. So, though the accounting standards were not complied with, he did not ask for this sufficient information why this has not been complied with, or what is the problem, why there is a deviation. Nothing was done, and simply he kept on certifying, and that is the reason he was held guilty. Then fails to invite attention to any material departure from the gap, that is the generally accepted procedures of audit applicable to the circumstances. So whatever the generally accepted procedures that are there, that needs to be followed, and still there was a material departure from those generally accepted procedures, and still he did not bother, the auditor did not bother, or auditor did not take note of the same, then in such case also the auditor will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. So in the case of MS Ramanathan versus Umanath Rao, where a CA did not conduct sample checking. So this is generally accepted procedure, that we would be doing the sample checking of the bank accounts in relation to the accounts of the company, and did not carry out vouching with respect to the transactions reflected in the accounts of the company. And he merely depended upon his assistant, who was a CA, and experienced clerk who were interested with the auditing work. So as in the previous slide while discussing, I said that though the work is being executed by our other team members, but still while signing we are duty bound, we are responsible, that the basics we need to check. At least we should ensure that yes, these balances are being reconciled or not, and all these, whatever the minimum these things, we need to ensure those things. because ultimately one who is signing, he is the person who is responsible for that. He cannot tomorrow say that my clerk did this, or my article did this, or maybe my another team member or partner did this. No, one who is signing, he has to take the responsibility for the same. Fails to keep money of his clients other than PO's remuneration or money meant to be expended in a separate banking account, or to use such monies for purpose for which they are intended within a reasonable time. Some point of time, see, the client has to pay some taxes. Maybe a client has to pay 10 lakh rupees of taxes. He says, sir, I am not using the net banking. I am transferring this 10 lakh rupees to you. So please keep this money with you and pay the taxes on my behalf. So if those 10 lakhs, which actually are meant for some uh, payment of taxes, and actually is not being utilized for payment of taxes, whereas are being utilized by the chartered accountant for his own personal purpose, then such kind of cases would also be falling under the second schedule, and would be held, the CA would be held guilty of professional misconduct. In this case of S. Sisadri vs. R. Srinivasan, a CA had received large sum of money from his client for making investments and depositing income tax on behalf of the client. He neither made investments nor he deposited the income tax or deposited the money in a separate bank account. If you are not able to do this immediately, at least you should have a separate bank account wherein this money. So I have seen many chartered accountants now, they are maintaining some escrow accounts, and from where they are paying the taxes and all these things. So that CA was held guilty. Contravenes any of the provisions of this act or the regulations made thereunder, or any guidelines issued. So this is a very broad this. Contravenes any provisions of this act, so CA Act 1949, or the regulations made thereunder, or any guidelines issued by the council. So in the case of Lawrence Tellis versus SG Mandray, where a CA entered into an improper arrangement to permit his article clerk to serve his articles under another CA in another place. So here it is a case of articles. He allowed his article to be with another chartered accountant. So in such cases, he has to go by a proper process of secondment and all these things. Without doing all this process and without disclosing the facts to the institute, he did so, and ultimately he was held guilty for this. Being an employee of any company, firm or person, discloses, see, when we discuss this case of articles, it becomes very important, because see, in good faith, many times we are doing all these things and everything, but if there is a tussle, there is a problem, now the articles would go and just complain against the chartered accountant कि सर ये सब तो गलत है, ये तो ऐसा ऐसा हुआ था, and for no reasons we would be in a soup. I've seen in many cases where the articles are accommodated maybe for some reason or other in a month or two or whatever, and if that stipend is not paid by check or something like that, and still the problems are coming up because of that. Being an employee of any company, firm or person, discloses confidential information required in the course of his employment, except as and when required by any law for the time being in force, or except as permitted by the employer. So here, this is applicable to the members of the institute generally. So even if somebody who is in employment and he reveals some confidential information to others, which is not warranted, which is not authorized, and which is not required by the law for the time being in force, or which is not permitted by the employer, then he also would be held guilty. Then the next one is includes in an information statement, return, or form to be submitted to the ICI, Quality Review Board, or any particulars knowing them to be false. If some wrong information is being supplied to the institute or maybe QRB or some appellate authority, even though person may be in employment or whatever, still he would be held guilty for this. So J.R. Chatrat, where a CA who was employed as a manager of a firm of registered accountant, applied for admission as a fellow of the institute, stating that he was a partner while he was not so. Actually, he was not the partner at that firm. Now everything is electronic. If somebody mentions, it would be available with a click of the button, whether he's a partner or not. Every record and document is available with the institute immediately. Defalcates or embezzles money received in his professional capacity. So if some money is being received in his professional capacity and that money is being used otherwise, so this is not only to the CA in practice, but this is applicable to CA in industry as well. A member, while working as a financial advisor, he was working as a financial advisor, misappropriated the fund of his clients by way of converting a saving bank account in his individual name to that of joint account with the client without his consent and fraudulently discharged 3 FDRs in the client's name. So he was held guilty under professional misconduct. Then the third one, other misconduct in relations. So first two is professional misconduct and this is other misconduct. So when we discuss that if it is less than 6 months, it would be falling under first schedule. It is more than 6 months or more, it would be falling under. If it is more than 6 months, then it would be falling under the second schedule. If it is up to 6 months, it would be falling under the first schedule. So he is held guilty by any civil or criminal code for an offense which is punishable with imprisonment for a term exceeding 6 months. So now let us move to the important substantive changes that has been brought from the Code of Ethics 2009 to the Code of Ethics 2019. These are the 5 things that we would be discussing. Friends, this NOCLAR, there was no such provision in the Code of Ethics 2009. But if we talk about Code of Ethics 2009, NOCLAR has been incorporated, has been brought in. But now this was supposed to be implemented from 1st of July 2020. But because of the pandemic and all these things, Institute has dropped it, has postponed it, and has not yet notified for the time being. So I'll not discuss much on the NOCLAR, but the only let us understand that NOCLAR means non-compliance of laws and regulations. So I'll deal with this maybe in the next slides to some extent, but will not discuss much in detail. But the only thing is whether the NOCLAR is there or not, we need to understand that SA 250, which is applicable to us, is otherwise also that required that if there is any non-compliance with any other laws and regulation, that has to be reported. So the NOCLAR has not been notified yet, but SA 250 is already there. Then no characterization as independence as standards. Now independence sections are recharacterized as international independence standards divided into part 4A and 4B. Then comes use of should. Earlier it was shall, now it has been changed to, in the drafting conventions, it has been changed to should. So it is now, I can say it is a kind of mandatory kind of thing to follow this. And in the earlier Code of Ethics, there was no such restructuring of sections. Now every section has been restructured into this different, this first is section, then requirements, and then applications. It has been given this. Now lack of clarity for each entity. Now increased clarity of responsibility for compliances for various this like firms, network firms, individuals within firms. So all this has been very, very categorically defined and described. So this the term professional accountant, this is being used in ISBA, that is International Ethical Standard Board of Accountants Code of Ethics. The same word has been adopted in our Code of Ethics 2009, and also we have continued the same in edition 2019. So as defined in Code of Ethics, professional accountant is an individual who is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So we call it as a CA. In the code, it is being used as professional accountant. And members in industry, they call it as a professional accountants in business, but we in our Code of Ethics have mentioned it as professional accountant in service. Well, this is again a very, very, very important thing that we all must look into. And when we discuss more on the engagement standards and all this, again, this comes in detail. If we talk about the SQC, there is a standard on quality control, SQC1, that is applicable to us. And that is applicable to all the firms. May these be small firms, big firms, whatsoever. The only thing is the nature and extent may be different. To the bigger firms, this would be applicable to a larger extent, but to the smaller firms, it would be comparatively flexible and the extent may be lesser. But it is applicable. SQC1 is applicable to all the firms. So when we discuss about the conceptual frameworks, which specifies an approach for a professional accountant. So any case, whenever we are accepting, we first must ensure we have to identify the threats to the compliance with the fundamental principles. So what are the fundamental principles? Integrity, objectivity, independence, all these things. Professional competence, due care, all these things needs to be ensured. So first we have to ensure that if there is any threat with which can lead to the compromise with the fundamental principle, then we have to identify those threats. Once the threats are identified, Then we have to evaluate the gravity, the magnitude of those threats. And once we have identified the threat, we have evaluated the threats, and then finally we have to address those threats by eliminating or reducing them to an acceptable level. If we are in a position to reduce those threats, if you can eliminate these threats, it's fine, absolutely no problem. If we are not in a position to eliminate those threats, but if we are in a position to reduce those threats to some acceptable level that our independence will not be compromised, then yes, we can accept those assignments. Else we'll have to turn down those assignments. So what are the various threats that may be there? There may be self-review threats. There may be familiarity threats, there may be self-interest threats, there may be advocacy threats, so there may be threat, intimidation threat. All these threats we have to ensure that if any of these threats that exist, if we have identified any of the threat that includes self-interest threat, self-review threat, self this intimidation threat, or all whatever these 5 threats just I discussed, if any such threat is there, we have to first identify, then we have to evaluate, and then we have to address. So when applying the conceptual framework, the CS shall exercise the professional judgment. We have to exercise our professional judgment. We have to remain alert for new information and to changes in facts and circumstances. So it is not only the case when we are accepting any new assignment, even subsequently during the continuation of that assignment also, we should kept on seeing that if any new information is coming in, or there is a change in some facts or circumstances that may lead to rise of new threats, that also needs to be addressed. And use the reasonable and informed third party test. So had it been some other party, third party at our place, and if they would be looking at this, and whether they would be seeing it as a threat, that also needs to be seen. So these 5 threats that I just discussed in the previous slide, we have to identify if any of these threats is there. Self-interest threat. What is self-interest threat? If the auditor himself is having any kind of interest in the client, like if we have invested some amount in that, if there is some or some borrowing is there from that, or we are partner in with that particular client whatsoever, if we are the major shareholder of that client, so all such kind of things may lead to self-interest threats. Then comes self-review threats. Self-review threats, I would say, like a kind of maker-checker concept. If we ourselves are the one who has written those books of accounts, if we are the accountant for that company, so we cannot be the auditor of that company. This is what the situation in India. If we talk about US, in US there is no such kind of things. The accountant can do the audit also, but India it is not allowed. So self-review threat. So whatever work that has been done by us, if we ourselves are reviewing that kind of work, so there is a chance of potential misstatement or potential mistake remains undiscovered. So self-review threat. Then comes advocacy threats. Advocacy threat, when we are representing some of the client in litigations or something like that, maybe with his income tax in some appeal or something like that. So the client for whom we are doing the audit, we are doing the advocacy for him also. So this is called as advocacy threat. So the this new code of ethics 2019 initially was bringing in this as well, but now again this has been not notified yet from 1st of July 2020. So for the time being, this advocacy, this is out of this. We'll discuss about this in the next slides. Familiarity threats. If for the same client we have been doing the audit for years and years, and some of our staff, maybe our senior person who is at the helm of the affair for doing the audit of that particular client for years, so we may develop a bonding or a relation with that client, and we may not be in a position to issue an independent audit report. So just such kind of threats when comes in, this is called as familiarity threat. When we develop very good bonding relations and all this, we need to ensure that do we need to continue with such kind of client, or what we can do is we can deploy some other person from our team who will be doing the audit, so he's not having that kind of familiarity threat kind of thing. Intimidation threat, when one client, he's in a position to intimidate us, maybe because of his power, because is a prominent personality in the society, or maybe he is, or majority of the fee is being received by him, and the client himself knows कि इस सीए के पास या इनके पास मैं अगर हट जाऊं यहाँ से तो इनको तकलीफ पड़ जाएगी. तो he using such positions, he may always say कि आप ये रिपोर्ट मत करो, ये मत दिखाओ, वो मत दिखाओ. So we need to ensure that if such kind of threats exist, if any, first thing is we have to identify all these threats. So if any such kind of threat is there, we have to identify, then we have to evaluate the gravity or the magnitude of that threat, and then we have to apply various safeguards. So what are the safeguards that we can apply? If it is a self-interest threat, then it cannot be done. We need to ensure that whether that self-interest threat can be eliminated, maybe we take our investments back or whatever it is, or safeguards, education, training, experience, continuous professional education. When we say CPE, this is not only for the members or the CAs, but their team member as well. Corporate governance, professional standards, regulatory, monetary, and disciplinary mechanism, various external reviews, that is a third party reviews kind of thing. So all these different safeguards, these are just few of the examples. We can have many more safeguards as well. So we need to apply the safeguards, and after applying the safeguards, we need to ensure. So we have identified the threats, then we have evaluated the threats, and then applied the safeguards. After the application of the safeguards, we need to ensure whether we have been able to reduce the threats or eliminated the threats, if so, and whether now this is acceptable, then we can accept the assignment. If we are not possible to reduce those threats, then we cannot accept that assignment, and we have to reject or turn down that assignment. The fundamental principles which we are talking about is, see, in any case, a CA should always ensure integrity, objectivity, professional competence, due care, confidentiality, professional behavior, and then ultimately independence. Because whenever we are issuing any report, audit report is an independent audit report, we call it as. So if all these 5 elements, that includes integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior, these fundamental principles are being applied, then only we'll be able to achieve the stage or state of independence. So now I discuss the things in detail about this. Integrity. What is integrity? So integrity implies fair dealing and truthfulness. The man must be honest. The CA must be honest. He must be straightforward. Okay. So he deals with the things in a very fair, true, transparent way and in a truthful way. So this requires an accountant to be straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationship. There should not be any kind of compromise with the integrity. So integrity, we all understand very well, is very difficult to explain or express integrity in words. It is a state of mind. Integrity comes from within. Objectivity. So objectivity implies independence from subjectivity caused by perception or bias. So the thing is, we should ensure that there is no such bias which prevent us from reporting the things in a true, fair, and transparent way. Sometimes if some kind of conflict or something is that is going on between us and the client, then our mind cannot remain unbiased, or some bias is bound to creep in. So we must ensure that the objectivity is not impaired. Why we are being appointed as the auditor of that company? We are appointed as auditor of that company to do the audit in a true, fair, and transparent manner. So objectivity, if at all impaired, that may create problems. So this requires an accountant to not to compromise professional or business judgment because of bias, conflict of interest, or undue influence of others. While if there is undue influence, if the client is having too much influence on us, then also will not be able to report independently. So that would be impairing the independence. So objectivity will be lost. If there is any kind of conflict or bias, अगर अपने को कभी ऐसा लगता है ये क्लाइंट तो यार बराबर नहीं, ये क्लाइंट तो चोरी है, और फिर भी हम उसका अगर ऑडिट कर रहे हैं, तो एक बायस हमारे मन में आ गया. इफ देयर इज एनी सच काइंड ऑफ बायस इन अस, we will not be able to do the audit in a true and transparent way. So that again would be impairing the objectivity. अगर हमारे बीच में कोई लिटिगेशन चल रहा है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल क्लाइंट ने मेरे ऊपर कोई केस कर दिया है, मैंने क्लाइंट के ऊपर कोई केस किया है, या कोई लिटिगेट कर रहे हैं हम कोई चीज में, मे बी फी का डिस्प्यूट है, whatever it is, okay, then still such kind of cases would again be creating problem, and the bias is going to be there. So we need to ensure that there is no such bias. Then professional competence and due care. So what is professional competence? We all understand professional competence, whether the professional who is discharging the duties or who is having his hand on that assignment, he must be professionally competent. हम CA हैं, but it doesn't mean that we are expert on all the subjects. Maybe some CA may be expert at income tax, some CA may be expert at GST, some CA may be expert at both the things possible. But in most of the cases, we cannot be expert on all the subjects, and we need to ensure that whatever the assignment that we are accepting, whether we are professionally competent, we are having resources, we are having the skills with us to accept that assignment, looking to the complexity nature of that assignment. So that professional competence needs to be ensured before taking or accepting any assignment. And due care is exercising the due diligence uh, to ensure that whatever things that are required to be done to do that audit, that is being done. So that is very much important, and this requires an accountant to attain and maintain professional knowledge and skill at the level required to ensure. So why we are having CPE? CPE are there, the CPERs are there only to ensure that the professional competence is maintained, because so that we would be learning the new things which are coming in. So it is a requirement of the code of ethics that we required, that we ensure that whatever professional knowledge and skill set that is required to discharge the things or duties are being they maintained or are being gained by us, and the employing organization, the organization who is giving us the appointment, he receives competent professional services. He is paying for the services, and he must receive the competent services, professional services. ऐसा ना हो कि उसके काम के साथ ही कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो रहा है. वी आर नॉट नोइंग हाउ टू डू एंड स्टिल वी आर डूइंग, सो अल्टीमेटली द क्लाइंट वुड बी सफरिंग. So it is our duty and responsibility to ensure that the professionally competent services are being given, and these are also in accordance with the applicable technical and professional standards. Then comes confidentiality. So confidentiality is again very much important, shared with others or something like that. So confidentiality implies the state of being respectful and responsible for the confidential information acquired as a result of professional or employment relationship. So may it be CA in practice or may it be CA in industry, whenever we are discharging our duties, we receive various informations with respect to the client, with respect to the organization, and so many other things. So it is our duty to ensure that those informations are kept confidential. So friends, when we talk about SQC1, there also a lot has been said about the confidentiality. So confidentiality, the maintaining the confidentiality is not only the responsibility of or is applicable only for the chartered accountant, but he's also responsible for maintaining the confidentiality from his team members. Suppose tomorrow if one of our article, he goes to an audit, and he's for some of the biggest client of Surat, I would say, and he sees that, oh, there is a balance of 100 crores in that account, and out of just immaturity or whatever, out of that excitement, he click a photo of that statement, and he shares on the social media. Let's see. So there is a kind of breach of confidentiality, and that may create big problems. We have seen such kind of things appearing in the newspapers, in the media earlier, wherein some such kind of things that has happened. Or there may be a case where somebody which normally 4 clients, 5 clients, and maybe say 5 big textile clients, and we are having all the informations with respect to each of the clients. So the information may be critical for all these clients, and if some information of one client, if being shared with the other client may have a great benefit to the other client and maybe a great disadvantage to the client of whose information it is being shared. And if some person, maybe some person from our team, he shares such kind of information to the other person for some money or something like that, that again would be a big breach of confidentiality. So the confidentiality is to be maintained at any cost, and that is the duty of the chartered accountant, the managing partner of the firm, and he should ensure that his all the team members should be respectful and responsible for such kind of things. And he cannot tomorrow say that, sorry, I was not aware of, my team has done this, that. No excuses. And it should not only be knowingly, even inadvertent mistakes should also be avoided. Then professional behavior. A chartered accountant, he must not only be professional, but his behavior must also be professional. So his conduct must be fair and according to the relevant laws and regulations. Then this requires an accountant to not to engage in any employment, occupation, or any activity that impairs or might impair their integrity, objectivity, or maybe good reputation of the profession, and as a result would be incompatible with the fundamental principles. Independence, which we discussed, independent standards set out requirements and application material on how to apply the conceptual framework to maintain independence when performing audits, reviews, or other engagements. So when we discussed all these things, the integrity, objectivity, professional competence, all these things put together, if applied, then and then only we can achieve independence and not otherwise. So professional accountant in there is CA in practice are required by independent standards to be independent when performing audit, review, or any other assurance engagements. Whenever we are having or discharging any kind of assurance engagements, we have to be absolutely independent. And independence is linked to the fundamental principles of objectivity and integrity. This we discussed in the previous slides. And independence is independence of mind and also independence in appearance. So we should not only be independent, but we should also be appear to be independent. That is the independence in appearance. Independence of mind, when we see or we say the state of mind that permits the expression of a conclusion without being affected by influences. So it should not be influenced by anything. So objectivity cannot be impaired. That compromises professional judgment. We should be able to take any kind of professional judgment, thereby allowing an individual to act with integrity and exercise objectivity and professional skepticism. What is professional skepticism, by the way? Professional skepticism, when we talk about
Sir,
professional,
I request is now 12:40 is there. So
yes.
if we can conclude this within 5 minutes, so that after 10 minutes we can take question answers.
Okay.
If possible,
So
sir, this is my suggestion.
yeah, sure. Actually, this presentation normally goes for 2.5 hours something. So I'll not deal these things in much in detail, but few things which I think of paramount importance, I'll talk to you. अगर ये सेमिनार जब हम लोग इन पर्सन होता है ना, तो इंटरेक्शंस होते हैं, तो बहुत ही मजा आता है इसके अंदर. बट अदरवाइज ये बहुत ही थ्योरेटिकल हो जाता है कई बार.
Right, sir, right. So that's why last के 10 minutes अगर हम question answer ले पाए तो
no
better
problem,
होगा.
no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have skipped a few of the slides, okay, and have gone to the next. This NOCLAR we have already discussed, will not talk on this. NOCLAR is otherwise applicable to only to the listed clients and debt to the audit engagements, nothing else. अगर हम independent standards की बात करें 4A and 4B, okay, तो major areas where independence has to be considered. One is fee. तो जब भी हम लोग कोई fee charge करते हैं, we must be sure that fee is not too less or not too high. We at times may be required to justify the fee that we are charging. अगर हम लोग fee को justify नहीं कर सकते, अगर fee कम बहुत ज्यादा कम ली है, it means there is some reason or other, or it may lead one to believe that यहाँ कुछ ना कुछ people are hand in glove, because इतना सारा काम इतनी कम फीस में नहीं हो सकता है. It means they are gaining some other considerations in some form or other which are not disclosed or not known. So fee has to be appropriately charged. If the fee is charged very less, then again that gives rise to compromise with respect to independence. So that has to be seen. और बहुत ज्यादा फीस है, कोई एक सिंपल रिटर्न ही भरना है और उसकी जो फी, कोई भी आदमी सोच सकता है कि भाई 5,000 हो सकती है, 10,000 हो सकती है, कि उसकी अगर 5 लाख रुपए लग रहा है या बहुत छोटी सी ऑडिट है उसका बहुत ज्यादा फी हो रहा है, तब भी एक वो डाउट क्रिएट होता है कि ये फी ऐसा क्यों है. तो दैट हैज टू बी सीन. एंड द अदर थिंग इज मेनी ए टाइम्स व्हाट वी सी इज, जब फी चार्ज होती है, if you are doing some work for some of our client or some relative or something and we are doing the audit and we are not, or maybe for some routine audit or some client we are doing so many work and उसका ही कोई काम होता है जो हम फ्री में कर देते हैं, उसके लिए हम बिल रेज नहीं करते. दैट इज अ सर्टिफिकेशन वर्क फॉर एग्जांपल. और कल को जाके अगर उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट होती है उसके और कोई कंप्लेन होती है, तो सबसे पहला अथॉरिटी का क्वेश्चन आता है कि भाई आपने फी क्या चार्ज की. एंड इफ यू से इनोसेंटली कि सर ये तो मैंने फ्री में करके दिया, मैंने इसका पैसा ही नहीं लिया, देन वी आर इन ए ट्रबल. This was guided to me by one of my lawyer friends so many years before, that if you are not charging any fee and still as a professional you are discharging your duties, you are giving the services, it means you are having some vested interest, you cannot be independent. So fee has to be charged. So I said कि अब क्या करना. Then he said, see, whatever has happened, you can't help it. Then his suggestion was at least have a invoice. You take the money, you don't take the money, you receive the money, they give the money, there is a different thing. लेकिन आपकी बुक्स में बिल बना हुआ होना चाहिए, बिल आपने उसको भेजा हुआ होना चाहिए. फिर वो फी देता है नहीं देता है वो अलग बात है. सो द आइडिया बिहाइंड शेयरिंग दिस पॉइंट इज, फॉर एवरी सिंगल सर्विस दैट वी आर गिविंग वी मस्ट रेज द इनवॉइस. So that is one which can be a savior to us in the court of laws as well. Compensation and evaluation policies, this is with respect to our team members. हमारी टीम के अंदर जो लोग काम कर रहे हैं वो अप्रोप्रिएटली उनको कंपनसेशन मिल रहा है या नहीं मिल रहा है. इवेल्युएशंस, उनके परफॉर्मेंस अप्रेजल्स वगैरह हो रहे हैं नहीं हो रहे हैं. गिफ्ट्स एंड हॉस्पिटलिटी, दिस अगेन इज अ बिग थिंग. वी मस्ट एंश्योर कि अगर गिफ्ट किसी की शादी है और एक स्वीट का डब्बा घर पे आ रहा है, फाइन, दैट इज एक्सेप्टेबल. लेकिन कोई क्लाइंट आपको 5 दिन के लिए स्विट्जरलैंड का टूर दे रहा है, सारा खर्चा आपका बेयर कर रहा है और आपकी टोटल फीस ही उस क्लाइंट से 50,000 रुपए और आपके ऊपर वो टूर पे 5 लाख रुपया खर्चा कर रहे हैं, सो दैट कैन नॉट बी एक्सेप्टेबल. सो दैट वुड अगेन बी कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग विद द इंडिपेंडेंस. एक्चुअल और थ्रेटेंड लिटिगेशन, अगर कोई क्लाइंट के साथ हमारा कोई केस चल रहा है या क्लाइंट हमारे ऊपर केस कर रहा है या कुछ भी, या फिर धमकी दी है कि हमेशा से ये करने वाले हैं वो करने वाले हैं, तो यहाँ पे भी ऑब्जेक्टिविटी जो है वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो जाती है. देयर विल बी बायस एंड सच अगेन द इंडिपेंडेंस विल बी कॉम्प्रोमाइज. दिस कैन नॉट बी फ्री फ्रॉम दिस बायस. देन रिसेंट सर्विसेज विद एन ऑडिट क्लाइंट, जिस क्लाइंट के यहाँ हम लोग जॉब कर रहे थे, जहां कोई सीए जॉब कर रहा था and suddenly he leaves that job and immediately join as the auditor of that company, from members in industry to members in practice, but with the same client. So again, this is also being seen as some kind of threat and compromise with the independence. Serving as a director of or officer of an audit client, जिस क्लाइंट की ऑडिट कर रहे हैं उसी के यहाँ पे कोई ऑफिसर या डायरेक्टर बने, भले ही नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव बना, नो, दिस इज नॉट पॉसिबल. दिस इज अगेन कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग विद द इंडिपेंडेंस. एम्प्लॉयमेंट विद एन ऑडिट क्लाइंट हो ही नहीं सकता. देन टेम्पररी और टेम्पररी पर्सनल असाइनमेंट्स, दिस आल्सो शुड नॉट बी देयर. फाइनेंशियल इंटरेस्ट, अगर किसी तरह का हमारा कोई फाइनेंशियल इंटरेस्ट है, हमने उसके अंदर कोई इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रखा है, शेयर्स ले रखे हैं, नो, द इंडिपेंडेंस विल बी इम्पेयर्ड. लोन्स एंड गारंटीज हमने कोई दे रखी है, ले रखी है, तो भी प्रॉब्लम है. हमारा उसके साथ कोई टाइप का बिजनेस रिलेशंस नहीं होने चाहिए. फैमिली या पर्सनल रिलेशंस भी उसके साथ नहीं होने चाहिए. लॉन्ग एसोसिएशन पर्सनल विद एन ऑडिट क्लाइंट, अगर हमारा, ये हमने डिस्कस किया, अगर हमारा कोई स्टाफ है जो बहुत सालों से उसी के ऊपर लगा हुआ है तो हमको उसको रोटेशन करता रहना चाहिए. ऑडिटर रोटेशंस, अगर इफ इट इज अ पार्टनरशिप फर्म, वन ऑडिटर इज डूइंग द ऑडिट, देन another partner or another auditor, whatever, that should be done within the firm also, it is possible. Provision of non assurance services to an audit client, कौन सी नॉन एश्योरेंस सर्विसेज हम दे सकते हैं? सी अगेन दिस इज अ बिग क्वेश्चन. there are two types: management services and administrative services. When we are filing the income tax return for the client, when we are filing the ROC returns, GST returns, yes, this can be done because this is the administrative service that we are giving. Simply we are not applying our any mind or any judgment, professional judgment for that. or any tax planning or nothing is being done. Simply they are submitting the data to us. We are punching the data into the system and uploading the returns. Fine. That is being categorized as administrative service and not as management services. Whereas if you are giving any project financing or such kind of things, then that is not allowed, because that would be come under the management. That is for the management, and that is management services. That is not possible. So there would be n number of other services which will not be allowed. So we need to ensure whether this is an administrative service or this is a management services. If this is a management services, we cannot provide any kind of management services to the audit client. This is not only restricted by our code of ethics, but this is also restricted by the Companies Act as well. Then reports that include a restriction on use and distribution. This also we need to ensure that koi bhi reports which are being issued that includes the restriction on use and distribution, that again be creating a problem for us. Breaches of code. So it is 12:50 now almost. Pradeep bhai, hello.
Yes, sir.
ये तो अभी काफी बाकी है वैसे तो, बट अगर आप बोले तो हम क्वेश्चन आंसर्स ले सकते हैं अभी.
100% सर, 100%.
ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विसेज और मैनेजमेंट सर्विसेज के ऊपर अपन ने अभी जो पढ़ा था, बताया, वो यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है. हम इंश्योरेंस फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजरी सर्विसेज, वी कैन नॉट बी अपॉइंटेड एज इंश्योरेंस एजेंसी, बट इफ आवर क्लाइंट कम्स टू अस विथ 4 डिफरेंट प्लान्स एंड ही आस्क आवर एडवाइस कि ये प्लान है, इसके अंदर ये दे रहे हैं, तो मेरे लिए कौन सा प्लान अच्छा है. So that kind of financial advisory services definitely we can give, but we cannot accept any insurance agency. Valuation services definitely we can give, that is very much possible. हमारा खुद का ही client है, उसको भी हम लोग valuation services दे सकते हैं. Then this is respond to tenders. हाँ, ये एक important है जो मैं cover कर लेना चाहूंगा, tenders वाला. Yes. So whether a CA firm can respond to tenders or not, this is very important. Friends, in 2016, our institute council came out with a guidance that if any tender which is open only to chartered accountants, there is under the monopoly services, I would say only chartered accountants can respond to that tender, then there must be minimum fees must be prescribed therein. If the minimum fee is not prescribed, then we cannot respond to such kind of tenders which are open only to the chartered accountants. But if any tender which is open not only to the chartered accountants but to others as well, say for example cost accountants, okay, a tender which is open to both chartered accountants as well as to the cost accountants, or maybe some consultancy companies as well, in such cases the requirement of minimum fee is not there, and we can definitely respond to such kind of tenders. So we have to ensure these things. In one of the cases recently only, so a tender which was exclusively for the chartered accountants, but the minimum fee was not mentioned therein, then we immediately brought it to the notice of the PD committee as well as that organization which floated the tender, and subsequently they changed that as well. And at times we have seen that they people are not ready to change. They says ki we don't understand this, or we have nothing to do with your institute. Then still some of the chartered accountants firm, they are applying or responding to such tenders, then they will be they may be at a problem in the times to come if some complaint is made. So it is better to avoid few of the tenders we let go recently only because the minimum fee was not mentioned therein. So we should never do such kind of respond to such kind of tenders. Sponsoring activities, can we do sponsoring activities? प्रदीप जी की इच्छा हो गई कि भाई ये सेमिनार सीपी वाला जो है उसको स्पॉन्सर प्रदीप जी करेंगे, तो यस ही कैन डू इट. द ओनली थिंग इज उनको इंस्टीट्यूट के जो पीयू प्रोग्राम ऑर्गेनाइजिंग यूनिट है वहां से परमिशन लेना पड़ेगा, एंड ही कैन डू इट. बट इफ इट इज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू सीएसआर एक्टिविटीज भी हम लोग स्पॉन्सर कर सकते हैं. कोई ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप है या कोई खाने का प्रोग्राम है, सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. द ओनली थिंग इज वहां हमारी फर्म का नेम नहीं आना चाहिए और सीए का वो इन्वर्टेड टिक वाला वो लोगो नहीं आना चाहिए. खाली हम हमारे नाम के सामने सीए लिख सकते हैं, सीए विकास जैन, सीए मिहिर ठक्कर, सीए प्रदीप काबरा, दैट वे वी कैन डू इट, बट नॉट अदरवाइज. सो कोई भी सीएसआर एक्टिविटी ज्यादा से ज्यादा कीजिए. आज 26 जनवरी है, ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप हमको करने हैं, कर सकते हैं, भी कर सकते हैं, खर्चा भी कर सकते हैं, सब कुछ कर सकते हैं, बट फर्म का नाम वहां पे नहीं लिख सकते. These are very much self-explanatory. I am leaving it up to you. I'll share the presentation with you and you can go through this. this one, these last two slides which I'll discuss with you, which I think is very very much important. जब हम लोग communicating without communicating with the previous auditor, we should not accept any audit assignment without communicating with the previous auditors. Here there are two situations. What if the premises are locked? In the Code of Ethics 2019, nothing was mentioned, but here it is very categorically mentioned that communication received back by the incoming auditor with office found logged. अगर ये remark लिखा हुआ है office found logged, written with the acknowledgement due column, it shall be deemed as delivered. The only thing that we need to ensure, जो communication हमने भेजा है, that should be sent on the registered address of the CA firm, the address which is registered. अब वो एड्रेस हमको कहां से मिलेगा? जो इंस्टीट्यूट के साथ रजिस्टर है, तो अदरवाइज एज सच तो नहीं मिलेगा, बट उसके प्रीवियस ऑडिट रिपोर्ट्स में उसके लेटर हेड के ऊपर जो एड्रेस लिखा हुआ है, दैट वी कैन डीम टू बी द एड्रेस which is registered with the institute. Then if communication sent by with remarks no such office exists at this address and address still we can accept such kind of things and it will be deemed to be delivered. There is absolutely no problem with that. ये HUF के बारे में गाइडेंस ऑन ए मेंबर in practice being member karta in HUF doing business incorporated. First thing is such kind of HUF must result from inheritance, succession or partition of the family business. अगर कोई bigger HUF है उसका partition होके छोटा HUF बनता है, fine. Only after specific and prior approval. अगर उसमें कोई business करना है तो prior institute की approval चाहिए. And the other condition is karta cannot have active role and attest functions are also not permitted in that HUF. So one clarification that was incorporated that a member engaged as karta of HUF doing family business will be within the limits prescribed by the council if he makes investment from the funds pertaining to HUF only, provided he is not actively engaged in the management. So first thing is he should not be actively engaged in the management of the said business. Then फंड्स के ऊपर भी लिमिट्स है, ये सारी चीजें ये भी आपके पास प्रेजेंटेशन में आपके पास छोड़ रहा हूं, यू कैन गो थ्रू दिस. सो प्रदीप जी, नाउ आई थिंक लेट अस गो फॉर द क्वेश्चन आंसर्स. प्रदीप जी, प्रदीप जी, आर यू देयर?
તમારે લોકોને કરવું પડે.
I think Pradeep ji's network is not working, it seems like. हेलो मीर भाई.
हाँ ये भी जेने भाई मारे पेला माने एपिसोड में यहाँ लेवे से तो नहीं जाए ना. हाँ
हेलो
हेलो
हेलो विकास सर.
हाँ जी.
सर थोड़ा एचयूएफ के लिए थोड़ा और बेटर एक्सप्लेनेशन दे पाएंगे सर?
श्योर श्योर, बताइए ना आप क्वेरी अगर कुछ है तो मुझे बताइए, फिर मैं आपको बोलता हूँ पहले।
सर एचयूएफ,
बेसिकली मैं आपको वापस से बताऊं तो सबसे पहले हम खुद का एचयूएफ अगर क्रिएट करते हैं,
यस,
दो क्वेश्चन है। एक तो अगर बिगर एचयूएफ से पार्टीशन होके एचयूएफ बना है वो, या हम खुद का एचयूएफ क्रिएट कर रहे हैं।
ठीक है।
तो अगर हम खुद का एचयूएफ क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, वो गिफ्ट से आता है और बनता है, डेफिनेटली हम क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन उसके अंदर कोई बिजनेस नहीं कर सकते।
बराबर।
ठीक है। अब दूसरा क्वेश्चन कि ऑलरेडी एक बिगर एचयूएफ है, उसका
हाँ।
पार्टीशन होता है और वो हमारे पास आता है, या फिर मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ सम पोजीशन, जैसे जो करता है उनकी डेथ हो गई और हम करता बन जाते हैं, या ऐसा कोई सिचुएशन आ जाता है,
बराबर है,
और उस एचयूएफ के अंदर बिजनेस भी है।
बराबर है।
तो वो जो बिजनेस है उसके अंदर सबसे पहला वो बिजनेस अगर हमको कुछ भी करना है तो हमको इंस्टीट्यूट से परमिशन लेनी पड़ेगी उसके लिए।
ठीक है।
ठीक है, काउंसिल की परमिशन लेनी पड़ेगी, और नॉर्मली उस केस के अंदर परमिशन लेना बड़ा मुश्किल होता है, परमिशन जल्दी से मिलती नहीं है। ठीक है, बट रिक्वायरमेंट ये है कि हमको परमिशन लेनी चाहिए। दूसरा, हमको एक्टिव रोल नहीं होना चाहिए उसके अंदर, उस बिजनेस के अंदर। रही बात इन्वेस्टमेंट की, तो उस एचयूएफ के जो फंड्स है वहीं तक का नॉर्मली इन्वेस्टमेंट होना चाहिए। उसके अलावा एक्स्ट्रा हम लोग बाहर से और लाके फंड्स लाके उसके अंदर हम इन्वेस्ट करेंगे या कुछ भी करेंगे, इस तरह की चीजें नहीं होनी चाहिए। तो अगर हम लोग नट शेल में अगर हम समझें, इसका आइडिया और ऑब्जेक्टिव इतना ही है कि हमारा सब्सटेंशियल टाइम या इंटरेस्ट उसके अंदर ना जाए, जिससे कि हमारी जो प्रैक्टिस है वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो या उसके ऊपर कोई इम्पैक्ट आए कहीं पे।
तो उसके अंदर एचयूएफ के अंदर क्या हम रिटर्न फाइलिंग कर सकते हैं?
नहीं, क्योंकि वो तो हमारा ही बिजनेस है, हम खुद ही हमारा ही दूसरा एक बिजनेस उसके अंदर कर रहे हैं, वो हम नहीं कर सकते।
तो एचयूएफ के अंदर इन फॉर्म ऑफ इनकम यू कैन जनरेट ओनली इन्वेस्टमेंट इनकम।
इन्वेस्टमेंट इनकम्स, अदर इनकम्स, हाँ, रेंट इनकम आ सकती है आपकी।
ओके।
अदर देन बिजनेस प्रोफेशन कोई भी इनकम आ सकती है सर।
फ्यूचर
ये जयेश भाई है ना, श्री कृष्णा स्टोन क्वेरी, आपका जो बीओबी में अकाउंट।
हेलो,
हेलो।
हाँ जी
सर, और फ्यूचर और ऑप्शंस का जो पूरा मतलब जो डेरिवेटिव्स मार्केट का जो काम चल रहा है,
हाँ
तो वो एचयूएफ में कर सकते हैं?
सर, नहीं कर सकते।
तो अगर मतलब समझ लो हेजिंग के पर्पज से भी अगर किसी को ऑप्शंस हेजिंग करना हो, फ्यूचर हेजिंग करना हो अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट के सामने, तो
नहीं सर, उसको क्योंकि एपेंडो को बिजनेस ही मान लिया डेरिवेटिव्स को।
Yes, sorry sir, मेरा इंटरनेट कनेक्शन वाज इंटरप्टेड.
नो वरीज,
Now I am back.
यस सर। तो वो उसको जो है ना इन्वेस्टमेंट, सॉरी, बिजनेस इनकम मान लिया जाता है। इसके लिए एपेंडो कोई भी फॉर्म में अलाउड नहीं है, ना हम हमारे नाम में कर सकते हैं, ना हमारे एचयूएफ में हम कर सकते हैं।
ओके ओके।
घर पे भाभी जी कर सकते हैं एपेंडो, उनको अलाउड है करना।
वैसे काफी सारे रिस्ट्रिक्शंस डाले हैं सर इंस्टीट्यूट ने सीए को.
प्रदीप जी आपके तो भाभी जी भी नहीं कर सकते, घर पे विनीता भाभी भी नहीं कर सकती है।
यस सर. बट ठीक है, एचयूएफ में वी कैन टेक गिफ्ट्स एंड ऑल, राइट? अदर इनकम फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज, रेंट,
अदर इनकम आ सकती है, रेंट इनकम आती है, कैपिटल गेन इनकम आती है, चलता है, बिजनेस इनकम नहीं आती।
राइट सर.
यस सर।
So I request members if any other questions to ask, they may raise their hand. ममता जी कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं, ममता जी ने हैंड रेज किया है. संतोष जी, ममता जी प्लीज. ममता चौधरी. तो मेरे को लगता है सर लगभग काफी बढ़िया सेशन रहा, और ऑलमोस्ट जो भी आपने क्वेश्चन ड्यूरिंग दिस सेशन भी एड्रेस किए हैं. सो आई वुड लाइक टू थैंक आवर डिस्टिंग्विश्ड स्पीकर
Shri Vikasji Jain for making an excellent presentation and making this seminar a very meaningful and interesting. और जो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स को क्या ध्यान रखना चाहिए, बिकॉज कई लोगों को अवेयरनेस नहीं रहती है इसके बारे में, क्योंकि हमारे पास पढ़ने के लिए काफी सारी चीजें हैं, काफी सारे एक्ट जीएसटी अमेंडमेंट में बिजी रहते हैं, तो जो सर कोर चीज है कई बार वो साइड में रह जाती है. एंड वंस अगेन थैंक यू वेरी मच सर कि इस पे आपने आज लाइट डाली. और यहाँ पे लगभग हम 300 मेंबर्स क्रॉस कर गए थे एक बार, तो ये बहुत अच्छा नंबर है सर किसी भी वेबिनार के लिए. इसी से सर जो आपकी विकास सर की जो एक्सीलेंस है, एक्सपर्टाइज है, लोग उसके लिए इंटरेस्टेड रहते हैं सूरत में. थैंक यू वंस अगेन सर.
प्रदीप भाई सही में बताऊं तो ये जो सेमिनार है कोड ऑफ एथिक्स और एंगेजमेंट स्टैंडर्ड, ये इन पर्सन जब वर्चुअल नहीं होके फिजिकल सेमिनार हो ना तो ही मजा आता है. अदरवाइज तो ये बोर्डम जैसे फील होते हैं, मतलब अपने खुद को भी डिलीवर करके वो मजा नहीं आता जो सामने अपन डिलीवर करते हैं.
एकदम सही है सर, बिकॉज पर्सनल क्वेरीज रहती है काफी लोगों की,
और ये थोड़ा बहुत टेक्निकल हो जाता है. मतलब कुछ जैसे ये इंडिपेंडेंस वाला जो मैटर है, इंटेग्रिटी, ऑब्जेक्टिविटी और प्रोफेशनल कॉम्पिटेंस, ड्यू केयर, इससे बड़ा हथौड़ा है वैसे.
राइट. बट ड्यू टू दिस कोरोना पेंडेमिक वी हैव सम लिमिटेशन. बस डेफिनेटली सर जब भी ये पेंडेमिक खत्म होती है वी वुड लाइक टू इनवाइट यू फिजिकली.
No, thank you very much, and I would extend my thanks to all the participants as well as to the Surat Managing Committee for giving me this opportunity to share my views on this subject. Thank you all for the patient hearing. Pradeep bhai, thank you very much.
And Vikas bhai, you have been excellent throughout the session. It was really very meaningful and fruitful.
Thank you, sir.
Seriously.
Yes, Sanjay ji, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.